Hello, it's Lexi at Cozy Tea Cafe on Bookstagram, and today we're going to be summarizing The Songbird and the Heart of Stone by Carissa Broadbent. This is the third book in the Crowns of Nyaxia series and the first book in the Shadowborn Duology. So this book does expand on some of the plot points from the first two books very briefly, but really this is just Misha's story. It's going into her backstory, and they're in a completely new setting. So with that being said, I could not get my hands on the audiobook for this, so please bear with me for any of the new characters, places, and their pronunciations. I apologize if I do not pronounce them right. Also, just to note, if you're not familiar with these videos, they are going to be full of spoilers, and this will be an in-depth summary of the plot points of the book from start to finish, so keep that in mind if you're going to keep watching. But we start with a flashback into Misha's childhood. We see that she was just an ordinary child when the sun god Atraxas chose her as his acolyte at 8 years old. At the end of the last book, Misha told Rain that she was leaving to travel. Months into her journey, she's arrested for killing the Shadowborn prince that turned her, and this happened in the last book. The prince's sister, Egret, visits her cell and uses Shadowborn mind magic to enter into Misha's mind and find the day her brother died. Egret isn't sad, she actually seems happy that her brother's dead, and she refers to Misha as a gift for someone. Later, a figure enters Misha's cell in the dark and heals her wounds, but she doesn't see who it is. Misha feels like she's in a trance, and when she finally snaps out of it, she's in a large ballroom with hundreds of vampires enjoying a party. Egret hands Misha over to her father, King Raoul of the House of Shadow. The king is the oldest and most powerful of the three Obatrean kings. Misha notices that Raoul is confused and unwell after he mentions Naculai and his dead son Malik, as if they were both still alive. He's about to execute her when a man enters and tells him to stop. The man is Asar Voldari, the Wraith Warden and King Raoul's illegitimate son. Asar says he needs Misha and her gifts from Atraxas for a task that the Dark Mother has sent him on. Misha calls for her magic, and Atraxas finally answers her and grants her power. The king allows her to go with Asar, and she learns that they're going to the underworld. Asar walks her away, and she tries to attack him with fire, but she hears Atraxas in her head telling her now isn't the right time. A skull wolf named Luce leads Misha down into Morthrin, and she sees various vials of blood for different species, including Nyaxia's blood. Asar appears and says that he wasn't expecting her yet, and he calls her Dawn Drinker, which is the nickname given to the acolytes of Atraxas. Misha learns that Asar is a necromancer, which is forbidden, and as the Wraith Warden, he's made a reputation for doing dirty tasks, and his father knows and encourages his gift for necromancy. Asar has intricate glyphs drawn on the floor around a corpse, and he calls Misha over. Asar tells her that it takes 5 mortal elements to resurrect someone, something to represent body, breath, psyche, secrets, and soul, which also correspond to the different sanctums of the descent. The corpse was another acolyte of Atraxas, and Asar says he needs help with the soul element and wants Misha to provide a sun flame. Asar tells Misha that Nyaxia has tasked him with resurrecting Alaris, who is the god of death, and Nyaxia's husband, who was killed by Atraxas. Misha prays to Atraxas, and he appears before her after years of silence. He tells her that he knows of Nyaxia's plan to resurrect Alaris, and says Nyaxia would destroy the White Pantheon if she succeeds. Atraxas and the other gods were not able to truly kill Alaris because gods aren't able to fully kill each other. They ripped his body apart and scattered it around the world, but a small piece of his soul remained. Atraxas tells Misha to make sure that the resurrection is successful, and then he wants her to kill Alaris for good while he's in a vulnerable state. Atraxas says they will have to travel through the 5 sanctums of the descent between the mortal and underworld, and uncover a relic of Alaris from each one, using the magic of the sun to claim them. Atraxas tells Misha to find a weapon in the descent that will kill a god. The corpse, named Chandra, is now alive after being resurrected. A guard named Elias rushes in and is angry with Asar for sending him on a wild goose chase because he knows Asar was trying to leave him behind. Asar leads them all to the staircase to the underworld within Morthrin, and Asar, Elias, Chandra, Luce, and Misha start the descent and come upon the edge of the veil, which is supposed to be guarded by the Viper, the Songbird, and the Lioness, but the Songbird fell years ago. Asar tells them that they'll need to stay on the path after crossing the veil. After they cross the veil, something is hunting them, so Elias raises his weapon, and both him and Chandra disappear into the mist. The lioness and serpent guards are hovering over Asar, so Misha jumps in front of him, but Asar grabs her and they fall into the mist as well. Asar heals her wounds in a cave, and she takes in her surroundings in the Sanctum of Body. The sanctum represents decay and shedding of physical forms, and they have to go to the temple at its center. As they reach the gates, Misha sees the supposedly dead third guard, the Songbird, emerge and fly around them. The bird attacks them, and Misha sees that it has a skull face. The bird has fire magic, and they realize it must have been resurrected by Atraxas. Misha realizes that the relic is inside of the bird's body, but it's moving too quickly for them to retrieve it. There are hundreds of corpses called wraiths on the other side of the glass wall, so Asar breaks the wall and lets them rush in, which distracts the bird. Asar traps the bird with magic, while Chandra and Misha unleash Atraxas' power from within its body as Elias fights off the wraiths. Asar cuts through the giant bird's body, and Misha reaches in to grab the relic and is transported to a memory of Alaris' first time meeting Nyaxia. Nyaxia stabs him with an onyx branch and says that she wants them to be on even footing since she's injured, and he promises not to send her back to the White Pantheon. The relic is a piece of that onyx tree hardened like marble. The wraiths are now descending upon them, and they run for an archway above a pool of blood. A wraith from within the pool latches onto Misha, and she recognizes him as Omen, an old acolyte friend and crush. Asar grabs her and pulls her through the gate. On the other side of the gate, it looks like Morthrin, but they're still in the descent. Since Morthrin is a passageway, it extends like roots throughout the sanctums. The farther down you get into the descent, the more sparse and decaying these roots get. Asar says it will take a week or two before they reach the next sanctum, and each one will be more difficult than the last. Misha helps Chandra tend to her wounds, and Chandra tells her that she was once a healer. Chandra was brought to Obatrace against her will because the vampires needed a midwife. Misha reflects on leaving Rain and Araya, and she misses them and knows that they love her, but she felt a darkness sweeping over her and didn't want them to risk anything else for her. Misha has a dream of her wedding night with Atraxas at 16. In the dream, she sees Atraxas, and he says he'll never abandon her. Misha wakes up and ventures down a new hallway and sees a large gate with the dead coming through. Asar and Luce are holding them off but losing. Misha jumps in and sees Omen again. Misha touches the glyphs around the gate and uses her Shadowborn power to finish closing them, since Asar is too weak to do it himself. The gate closes, and Misha helps Asar up the stairs, and they enter a bedchamber, and she suddenly feels very tired. Misha helps Asar into a tub, and Luce barks at her to get in, and they both fall asleep inside. When they wake up, Asar explains that when the dead touch you, they leech the life out of you, and their presence can linger. The potion in the bathtub washes away all remnants of death. Asar says that Alaris' wards are breaking after he's been gone for so long, and that's why the gate was able to be opened by the dead. Asar sees the scars on Misha's arms and asks why she still uses Atraxas' power if she has Shadowborn gifts from being turned by Malik. She says that she didn't choose to be turned, and she doesn't want that power that he gave her because she's loyal to her god. Asar says that he's glad she killed his brother and says that the power isn't his anymore, it's hers, and he can feel it within her. He compliments her on the magic she used at the gate and says that he might need help closing more of them on the rest of their journey. Misha agrees to help because she sees that he's devoted himself to fixing broken things like her. When Misha was still an acolyte at 15, she almost kisses Omen before her sister walks in and catches them. Her sister yells at her, and Misha learns that Atraxas' chosen ones are expected to give their body to him at a certain age and remain loyal to only him. Asar asks Misha about the dead boy who keeps following her and says that the souls that don't make it on their own down to the descent end up wandering and get trapped looking for either life or death. They reach the entryway to the Sanctum of Breath, and they all walk through together. They reach a bridge and see translucent wraiths. The wraiths here are not as enraged as the ones in the Sanctum of Body because here they are grieving. They reach a temple, and it's guarded by reptilian beasts called Soul Eaters. Asar tells them to be quiet and calm, but a wraith grabs Chandra and everyone panics. The wraiths chase after them as they run for the temple door. A soul eater attacks Misha, and dark power bursts from her, and she's able to make it into the temple. There are no wraiths inside, but the lights go out. A woman steps forward, and Asar tells them all to run as Elias pulls Misha away. Misha loses him and realizes that they're in a maze, and she feels runes on the wall and uses Atraxas' fire to light up the runes, which then guide her through the maze. The woman finds Misha and says that Asar likes her, even if he doesn't know it yet. Asar distracts the woman and speaks into Misha's mind to tell her to get through the door because the woman can't pass through it. Once they're all through, Asar breaks away from the woman and jumps in after them. A panther guardian emerges, and Asar says that he's watched over the realm for 154 years, and he asks them to trust him with Alaris' relic. The guardian says that his intentions are pure, and they see another memory of Nyaxia in a poppy field, and Alaris kisses her. Asar receives the poppy relic of the Sanctum of Breath, and the guardians warn them of deadly cravings, and then they travel back to Morthrin through a gate. Elias confronts Asar about the woman they saw and accuses him of having other motives for coming down here. Misha tries to get Elias to calm down, but he slaps her. Asar then attacks him and tells him not to touch her. Elias suggests taking the relics and using their power, but Asar says no. Elias says the world is readying for war, and the Bloodborne have conquered a human nation, which has never been done before. Misha has a nightmare that Asar wakes her up from, but she's convinced that it was real. Asar says that the deeper they get into the descent, the boundaries between worlds are weaker. The next sanctum is Psyche, and their minds might prey on them. Misha panics because she hasn't seen Omen and is afraid that his soul was eaten. Asar assures her that his soul is still here and takes her to a creek of blood, tells her to touch the bottom and say his name. She sees him seemingly healed and realizes that he made it to the underworld. Asar initially denies helping him, and then he tells her that he set Omen on his right path. He tells Misha that Omen doesn't blame her for his death and says that he worshipped her. They continue making their way down the descent and fixing gates as they go. Asar says that his father killed all of his other bastards, but saw potential in him. Asar would kill to remain useful and hold his father's favor, and Misha tells him that their pasts don't define their futures, and she sees that he actually cares about what she thinks of him. In a flashback, Misha becomes Atraxas' bride on her 16th birthday, and they consummate the marriage. Sometime after, a vampire is brought to the Citadel and tortured. She's curious about the vampire and brings him flowers. She asks Atraxas if their souls can be saved, and he says no. She offends him by pushing the subject, and the next day she sees the dead vampire hanging by his feet in the courtyard, and she cuts him down in front of everyone, which is seen as an act of defiance. Within the Sanctum of Psyche, Asar warns them that their thoughts can be manipulated and used against them as bait. As they walk, Asar abruptly stops and stares at his hands as lightning erupts from them and an air mark appears, meaning that his father must have died. Elias steps forward like he's been waiting for this and stabs Asar in the side. Elias and Asar fight, and Asar is pushed off of a cliff as Misha runs after him. Asar drops into the pool of blood below, and Luce jumps after him as Misha dangles from the cliff. Elias offers to help her up, saying that the queen will pardon her. If she goes with him, she would be leaving Asar to die, so she drops from the cliff into the pool of blood. Within the blood, Misha starts to go through memories of her life, and when she comes across Asar, he touches her and calls her Dawn Drinker, which jolts her back into reality and makes her realize that it's the Sanctum of Psyche warping her mind. Chandra pulls Misha out of the pool and tells her to escape with them to freedom, but Misha says she can't. She hears Chandra scream as a wraith attacks her. Misha sees a vision of Chandra as a midwife for the vampires and sees that she sacrificed every single vampire baby to Atraxas, and Misha feels so sick that she lets the wraith attack and kill her. She finds Luce and they jump back into the pool for Asar. Misha sees Asar's memories of himself crying over his dead dog that was murdered by his brother as his brother Malik laughs at him. Then his father ordered him to resurrect the dog, which is Luce, with his necromancy for the first time, and she comes back as a skull dog, but her soul is still intact. Misha then sees Asar meet a noble vampire woman named Ophelia, and they fall in love. Ophelia is then murdered by Malik, and Asar tries to resurrect her, but the spell is too powerful and it goes wrong. The dead reach up and drag her body down, and she becomes the half-alive, half-dead monster they saw in the last sanctum. They see a tomb in the distance and think that's where the relic must be. They open a door to the tomb and are flooded with Atraxis' light. Misha says that she'll go because it won't kill her, even though it will hurt. Ophelia catches up to them, and Misha jumps into the light. She sees a figure that is a reflection of herself, which shows Misha her sins as it attacks her. Asar shatters the walls of the tomb as wraiths swarm him, which allows Misha to use her shadow magic to destroy her reflection. She feels the shadow power that she's been suppressing, and she feels that it's easy and painless, unlike Atraxis' power. They reach the altar and see another memory of Nyaxia and Alaris' wedding. Misha's injuries finally catch up to her, and she passes out. They wake up back in Morthrin, and Misha grapples with her shame for using shadow magic, damning Chandra, and for her intimate dream with Asar. But she's even more ashamed that she enjoyed doing all of those things. Asar says that his sister wants the throne more than anything, and with the House of Blood conquering a human nation, she'll want to follow suit. Asar tells Misha that Elias was there when Ophelia was tortured and murdered, but he didn't do any of it himself, and everyone was just acting on Malik's orders, just as Elias is acting on Egret's orders now. They see that one of Alaris' rose petals is missing, and Asar worries that if Elias makes it up with the petal, he'll give it to Egret and she'll use its power. Asar tells Misha to leave, catch up with Elias, and go back to save herself, but she refuses. She says that he can't do it without her, and she has her own reasons for being there. They've reached the end of Morthrin and have to travel through the sanctums for the rest of the journey. They're running out of their stored blood after Elias took the rest when he fled. They travel until they reach a stone cottage and enter to find a female wraith named Esme, and Asar greets her with fondness. Esme was the previous warden until she displeased the Shadowborn king and he killed her. Asar tried to help her soul pass, but it was too stubborn, and this was as far as they were able to get. Because of her knowledge of the descent while she lived, the illusion of Psyche allowed her to build her perfect life here with the help of Asar. Misha and Esme talk alone while Asar cleans up, and Esme tells Misha that her scars will not stop and warns her to be careful of how much of herself she gives to Atraxis. Esme says she sees that Asar cares for Misha as more than a friend, and she says that he is fiercely loyal. Esme asks Asar to play the piano, and Esme and Misha dance along. As he plays, Misha feels more affection for Asar. Esme goes to bed, and Asar plays Misha one more song made of notes that remind him of her. They dance together, and Misha grapples with her loyalty to Atraxis and her attraction to Asar, but she doesn't want to pull away. Asar tells her that Atraxis took advantage of her, and love shouldn't hurt, and then he kisses her scars. As they're about to kiss, a blast explodes through the cottage. Ophelia emerges with hundreds of wraiths, and Asar fights them off. Malik's wraith shows up and taunts Misha, but Asar attacks him. Esme tells them to flee as she distracts the wraiths, and they're hesitant to leave her alone, but they run and jump off of the cliff at the end of the Sanctum of Psyche. In a flashback, Atraxis confronts Misha after her rebellious act of cutting the vampire corpse down. He says that he has reason to doubt her, and she begs him to prove her loyalty with a mission. He tells her to go to Obitrace and find him a vampire heart that can be shown the light. She was too naive to understand that this was a death sentence, so she agreed. In the present, Misha wakes up on a sandy beach near the citadel where she used to live, and she sees Omen. Misha realizes that something is wrong and remembers Asar. She runs for him, and the Soul Eater disguised as Omen pursues her. She kills it with Asar's sword, and he wakes up. Asar says that he doesn't see a beach like she does, and says that the Sanctum of Secrets is all about desires and shame. While Psyche holds memories, Secrets holds emotions. They head up towards the citadel, and Misha passes out from exhaustion, starvation, and her injuries. Asar and Misha travel in a dizzy haze and take shelter in a safe space. Misha and Asar drink from each other, and the moment turns intimate. After they're healed, Misha, Asar, and Luce head to the building that appears as a citadel to Misha and a castle to Asar. Inside, shadows swirl around them, and Ophelia appears again. She says that Misha smells like Asar and drags her down. Misha slips into a memory of her sister Sasha, helping her get ready for her wedding. Misha realizes that she's still in the Sanctum of Secrets and sees that Sasha is a wraith, and she lunges for Misha, angry that she betrayed Atraxis. Misha sees Asar fighting Malik above and notices that a gate is separating them. She uses her magic to open the gate and reunite with Asar, then closes it despite her sister telling her not to leave her again. Luce is injured, and Asar sees that in the center of the temple there is a box that held a relic, but it's now open and empty. Misha asks Asar if he can help Sasha to the underworld, and he says that he's never been able to help souls this far down. Misha breaks down, and Asar assures her that she's so much more than a child of Atraxas, and she'll always be special, and then they kiss and sleep together. They fall asleep, and Atraxas comes to Misha in her sleep, angry that she hasn't been loyal. Atraxas burns Misha's face and shows her a memory of her sister. Sasha found Misha after she turned, and Misha was so starved with bloodlust that she killed her sister. Atraxas tells Misha to finish her task, and Misha asks him to give Sasha another chance at life and to spare Asar. He agrees to resurrect Sasha and agrees to spare Asar, thinking it will spite Nyaxia if one of her kings owes him a favor. Atraxas says that Alaris hid his secrets in the sanctum too, and tells her to look below for the relic. Misha wakes up below the floor and finds Asar. He sees the burn on her face and neck, and she lies and says it was from a memory from the past. They reach a door with a phoenix carved into it, and when they enter, they see another memory of Alaris putting a magic arrow into the secret compartment. The arrow was made by a god and was meant to kill Nyaxia, and now Atraxas expects her to kill Alaris with it. They head to the last sanctum, the Sanctum of Soul, which will act as a doorway in the fifth relic for the resurrection. Asar seems rattled by something, and Misha wonders if he had an encounter that was similar to hers while they were sleeping in the temple. Asar asks her if she has any regrets, and she assures him that he is not one of her regrets. Asar pushes Misha to practice her magic, and he tells her that he'll need help with the resurrection ritual because the journey has taken a toll on him. They reach a field of poppies with the doorway to the Sanctum of Soul in the center. Misha tells Asar what the sunlight feels like, and he tells her that she succeeded in her mission of turning one vampire soul because she makes him feel all of that. She tells him that he'll be a great king before they enter the last sanctum. In a final flashback, Misha heads to Obitrace on her impossible mission, and Sasha and Omen insist on going with her. Misha sneaks out in the night and encounters a vampire who talks with her, then takes her away somewhere willingly, even though she thinks that it's dangerous. Misha wakes and sees a younger human reflection of herself on the floor that peers into the underworld, which represents the death of her mortal life when she was turned vampire. Malik appears from the darkness and grabs Misha. Misha stabs Malik in his previous death wound that she had given him, and Asar fights him. Asar pins Malik as Misha drives the blade through his heart and kills his soul. Ophelia descends from above with hundreds of wraiths and grabs Misha. Ophelia transports Misha through her own memories as a child, teen, and adult as Ophelia tries to kill her. Misha catches a glimpse of Ophelia's true self and sees her fear and vulnerability there. Misha tells Ophelia that she's sorry this happened to her, and she soothes her as her shadow magic helps Ophelia pass through the veil to the underworld. Asar catches up to them, and he uses his magic to help aid Ophelia's soul passing. He wasn't able to do it alone before because his regret and shame tied her soul to his and kept her trapped there. Misha, Asar, and Luce head for the tower, and Asar begins putting the relics in the resurrection spell. They both use their magic to connect the relics, and Asar tells Misha that she'll have to finish herself because he has to offer his soul as the final relic because he reveals himself to be a descendant of Alaris. He tells her that Nyaxia will take care of her and grant her freedom. Misha screams for him as the spell swallows him whole. Atraxas shows up and hands Misha the arrow and tells her to finish what she started, but the spell isn't complete yet. Misha realizes that he's there to absorb the surge of power that will come from Alaris' death, and he tells her that he will create a new dawn where vampires will be starved out and humans won't have to fear them. She sees Sasha's wraith and tells her she's sorry, and she shoves the arrow into Atraxas' throat. Misha takes the arrow out and stabs him again in the heart, and they both go up in flames. Misha wakes up and sees Nyaxia, who is enraged. Asar tells Nyaxia that Misha killed Atraxas to save Nyaxia's people, but she says that she doesn't care. She only wanted her husband back, and since the spell wasn't completed, his power was given to Asar. Asar begs Nyaxia to save Misha, but she says if he wants to be a god, he can save her himself. Then she leaves before the other gods arrive. When the other gods do get there, they toss Misha aside and stab her to death as Asar shouts that he needs her. Misha wakes up in the underworld, and Vincent, the dead king of the Nightborn vampires and Araya's dad, approaches her and tells her that they have work to do. Meanwhile, Asar is being kept by the gods, and they're unsure of what to do with him now that he has the power of a god. He plots his revenge against the gods and plans to get Misha back. So that is where the third book ends. The next book in the series comes out on August 5th, 2025. If there are any other books that you would like me to summarize, just leave me a comment below, and thank you for watching.